I can still hear that sentence with absolute clarity, as if it occupies a specific place in my mind. It's a scar, deep within. It happened some time ago, yet it still rings in my ears as if it were yesterday. I don't even know the name of the man who said it to me, but I have his face and his hatred etched in my eyes and all over my skin. When somebody hates you, you feel it across your entire body. It's usually just words, but the shrillness of words laden with hatred works its way under your fingernails, into your hair, around your eyelids. Of course, it also enters through your ears. Eventually, everything seems to be welling up somewhere between the throat and the stomach, to the point where you feel as if you're drowning. If the feeling builds up over a long enough period of time, something could burst. The man who said, "Get out of my country," was a Trump supporter. I know this because he was wearing a pin identifying the then candidate on one of his lapels. But most of all, I know this because of the way he said it to me. He looked me straight in the eyes, pointed a finger at me, and shouted. Time and again, I've gone back to watch video of the incident, which took place in August 2015, and I still don't know how I was able to remain calm. I remember the tone of his voice caught me by surprise. Trump, with the brutal and cowardly help of a bodyguard, had just ejected me from a press conference in Dubuque, Iowa. I had just started thinking about how to respond when suddenly I heard a madman shouting and pointing his finger. I looked up, and instead of simply ignoring his rudeness as I would have preferred, I settled myself and simply replied, "I'm also a U.S. citizen." His response made me laugh. "Whatever," he said, sounding like a teenager. A police officer who overheard the exchange outside the press conference stepped between us, and that was where it ended. But the hatred stuck. Hatred is contagious, and Trump is infectious. I am convinced that if Trump had treated me differently, his supporter would not have spoken to me as he had. But Trump had just thrown me out of a press conference, and that, somehow, had given this man permission to direct his hatred toward me. In over 3 decades as a journalist, such a thing has happened to me only once before. It was 1991, during the first Ibero-American Summit in Guadalajara, Mexico. One of Fidel Castro's bodyguards shoved me and threw me aside as I was questioning the Cuban dictator about the lack of basic freedoms on the island. Trump also used the bodyguard to prevent me from asking a question. He and Fidel used the same tactics of physical force, via their bodyguards, to handle an uncomfortable encounter with the press. My problems with Trump began in New York on June 16, 2015, the day he launched his presidential campaign. It was there that he made the following statement. "When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists. And some, I assume, are good people. It's coming from more than Mexico. It's coming from all over South and Latin America." These are racist comments. Period. He lumped all Mexican and Latin American immigrants in the same bag. He made a sweeping generalization. He lacked the intellectual honesty to say that only some immigrants commit crimes, not the majority of them. Later, several of Trump's supporters swore that he was referring only to a specific type of undocumented immigrant, the most violent ones, not all who come across the southern border. Perhaps. We will never know for sure. But regardless, that is not what he said. What I do know is that when Trump launched his campaign, he accused all Mexican immigrants of being criminals, drug traffickers, and rapists. What he said is absolutely false. All the studies I have read, especially the one conducted by the American Immigration Council, have come to the same conclusion, namely, that immigrants are less likely to commit serious crimes or be behind bars than the native-born, and high rates of immigration are associated with lower rates of violent crime and property crime. Trump started his path to the White House with a massive lie.